Howdy y'all, Fuzzy Biker here in the Fuzzy Biker Garage, and look what we've got behind us today. That is my Royal Enfield Super Meteor 650. I got that, I think, about 3 weeks ago. They were released in America about 4 weeks ago. And I've got about 23, almost 2,400 miles on it. And I'm going to do my 2,400 mile review, 3-week 2,400 mile review. I've got a lot to say about it. We'll kind of go over what the bike is, what features came with its stock, what kind of things I've added to it, how it rides, how it runs. We'll talk about the company Royal Enfield and what I think about them. And then we'll talk about my experiences. In particular, I took a 700 mile ride, 2-day 700 mile ride, did a bunch of interstate. And that's why I bought the bike. I'm going to do a lot of long rides with this. And we'll talk about that. And then we'll conclude with, well, you know what? Let's go ride, catch up at the next spot, Wahoo. We have made our way over here to Prairie Rose State Park, Shelby County, Iowa. There's kind of a look at the lake. It's I think it's a 218 acre lake when the water's up. Kind of a neat park, about 420 acres total, lots of wildlife. As a matter of fact, when I get done shooting this segment of the video, I'm gonna go for a little walk. Life is good. Back to the bike. 2,400 miles, I'm 2,300 and something in change. So what is this bike? And I would say the motorcycle is a modern cruiser style bike with retro underpinnings, but it's not a retro cruiser. And retro underpinnings, by that I mean it's air cooled, it's got the loop frame, it's got the standard twin shocks, it's got these ears here, you know, it's got the bulbous tank, a twin cylinder engine. It's got the things that go back to the old Royal Enfields, like the hanging engine. You know, the frame stops right here, but yet it picks up again here, so there's no frame underneath here at all. You know, a lot of that classic kind of look. The back end looks classic, but it's not a classic bike. It's not a retro bike. How does it perform? Well, it is a cruiser, and they've tuned, it's a 650, by the way, 648 cubic centimeter air-cooled. Well, we'll go into that here in a bit. But they've tuned the motor very well to be a cruiser, although it is slightly gear sensitive at low speeds. Gear sensitive means you really need to be in the right gear and about the right RPM at the right speed, but just slightly that. But what they have done with that motor is they've tuned it really well from 50 to, I think I've had this up to 93 miles an hour. I took this on a long ride and I was just amazed at how much power and torque this bike had at those speeds without having to shift. Now, if you want to shift, you go a little faster, but I didn't have to. I guess, you know, that's the whole point. It just kind of did what you wanted it to do at those. I didn't have to work at it. It did it so well. You could drive it lazy, as I like to say. You could drive it lazy. How's that? Okay, so let's talk about a little bit of the bike. So 648 cc engine, single overhead cam, 4 valves per cylinder, 270-degree crank. You know, to get that wop wop. It's air and oil cooled. Here's the oil cooler, and that's an actual metal cover. By the way, all of this is metal. The fenders, the side covers, everything's metal. Over here, it's got the 6-speed transmission, that beautiful combination between the 650 engine and the 6-speed transmission that Royal Enfield has done on their Interceptor and their Continental GT. It performs just like those transmissions do. It's got this different linkage, and your feet are in a different spot, but yet it's still that smooth, good shifting, you know, wonderful thing. I really like that. The bike has a long wheelbase, longer than those other bikes. It's got the 59-inch wheelbase. That's about 1,500 millimeters. And I think it's 5.3 inches of ground clearance, which it has plenty of ground clearance. That's 135 millimeters. And that makes its handling a little more stable, but less nimble. So it did really well going down the interstate. It does fine in town, and it does fine, you know, in the city and all that neat stuff. But it's not going to be sport bike-like handling. Now, having said that, I did a 300-mile ride with a friend of mine through Les Hills, those curvy, twisty roads. He was on a T120, a brand new one. And he really made that thing sing. Now, this did okay performance-wise. Handling-wise, it did all right, but it didn't have that, you know, if I had been on an Interceptor, for instance, I would have been able to have an easier time of keeping up with him, or trying to keep up with him. You know, he was really rock and roll with it. Because it would have had a shorter wheelbase, lighter weight. And the bench seat, a lot of people don't like those bench seats, but they're really good for riding hard. But this seat is good in another way. This has got that nice, comfortable. These are my Tour Master gloves that I just love for winter riding. It's got this nice, big, wide, comfortable seat, and we'll talk more about that in a bit. Jumping up to the front end, it's got 43 millimeter inverted forks. These are a first for Royal Enfield, and this is another reason I'm not calling it a retro, because it's got these inverted forks. And they have about, I think it's 4.7 inches of travel in the front. That's 120 millimeters, I believe. I love the way they put this protector on there. You know, this is all metal, by the way. That just kills me that you know, that's a, they've got these alloy rims, so it's a tubeless tire, a 320 millimeter disc, ABS, dual pot Vibri. I mean, it's really got it going on there. And by the way, the brakes on this bike, there's been a lot of talk about that on the internet. You know, oh, the brakes. I think it's got great brakes. You know, we'll just jump to the back real quick. Got a 300 millimeter single disc on the back, 300 millimeter. That's very large for the rear. And you can't really see it. I guess maybe you can. It's got a twin pot Vibri caliper. Twin pot means there are two pistons. So the front tire on this bike is a 190/19. Jumping to the back, I believe it's a 150 width on a 16-inch rim. And by the way, 4 inches of travel for the twin shocks on the back. That's about 102 millimeters. And I'm going to just jump there real quick. When you get your Meteor, when you buy your Super Meteor, make sure they adjust the back shocks for you, because when I got this bike, the shocks are on the lowest setting, and it bottomed out, and you know, had a nice ride until you hit a bump, and then it was really jarring. Fuel tank on this is a 4.1 gallon. That's supposed to be 15.5 liters. Now, maybe you all saw the video where I ran out of gas. second ride on this bike, I ran out of gas. Fortunately, I ran out of gas at a gas station. Now, I put gas in it. It only took 3.9 gallons. So my experience is it's a 3.9 gallon tank. Royal Enfield claims it's a 4.1. And then wait for this hot rod, the big number, the number we all want to know about. 531 pounds wet. That's with a full tank of fuel. That's 241 kilograms. Is it heavy? It is back heavy. It is a heavier bike. I took this on the interstate here a couple days ago. We had 35 mile an hour gusty winds, and I got blown around, but you know what? I was happy I had that extra weight. And now jumping from weight to seat height. Seat height is 29.1 inches. That's 739 millimeters. It's a nice low seat, and that's something I'd like to talk about. So I've got a lot of miles on this, and it took me about 1,000 miles to get used to the seat, and that's something I hear a lot from people. Oh, the seat's comfortable. The seat's not comfortable. Blah blah blah. The only way you can tell if a seat's comfortable is by putting a lot of miles on it. Initially, the seat was not that comfortable. As a matter of fact, I had to learn how to use this seat. I was sitting traditionally, I like to sit towards the back. I had to learn to sit forward on here. As I got going with that, I became very comfortable. I was sitting very upright. I was reaching to the bars about as much as the bars reached to me. My legs were forward. It was actually a very comfortable place to be when I did that. Now on my long trip that I just took, I used that seat to its fullest. You know, sometimes I'd sit forward, sometimes I'd come back, left, right, all that neat stuff. It was a very good place to be. As a matter of fact, that's one of the interesting things about that long bike ride I took down to Missouri was when I got to Missouri, 350 miles, the first leg of my ride, it dawned on me that I had not complained about the seat. I was very comfortable with it. It was actually one of the things that was just a non-issue. You know, it worked very well. So very happy with that. But the suspension of the bike this is a $7,500 bike out the door. The suspension is very good for that amount of money. I think it's, the front is excellent, I would say. It's not adjustable, but it's done very well. It's sprung very well. I'm a 200-pound guy. It worked very well for what I was doing. The back, I would say, is excellent 95% of the time. There are times when it's a little rough, but it's not terrible rough. And now that I've got it adjusted, it actually works pretty darn well. Almost all the time. I'm very happy with it. When I was tearing through Kansas City, I went through Kansas City both directions. The bike handled superbly. It just did it so well. The brakes are the same thing. I felt like I had excellent brake control. You know, they just work so well. The handling, the braking, and the engine. Let's talk about that really quick. When I was going through Kansas City, again, I think I mentioned this earlier already, but the engine was superb. It just always had the power where I needed it, when I needed it. And I would say this bike, they have gone out of their way to make sure the fueling works very well with this, and I'm very happy with that. That is something that I was just amazed by. When I was going up hills, down hills, you know, the bike didn't try to run away. It didn't dog out on me. It just worked very well. You know, while I got you all here, let's look at this stuff real quick. The switch gear, it's got these wonderful levers, kind of a sweeping wide through here. You know, it's got the radius on the side. They are adjustable, very good. Probably my second favorite levers on the market. These beautiful Amel style grips. Check that out. This is Royal Enfield right where you can see it. I love the shape. They were very comfortable on the long ride. They're kind of hard, but they're kind of soft, so they absorb a little bit of vibes. You know, very nice wide bars. Jumping up here, you've got the flash to pass, low beam, high beam. You've got an information button over here to control the LCD in the center. We'll look at that in a minute. The blinkers, the horn. Jumping over here, it's the kill switch, the run switch. Hit that for start. It's a rocker switch to start. Hazard lights there, fuel right there, brake lever there, and the brake lever is also adjustable for throw right there. Very nice on their part. Mirrors on this bike, I thought they were smooth. I didn't have any issues with them. They've got pretty good placement. I can see a bit of my shoulder on both sides, but I don't think I'm going to be scooting them out. Almost all my bikes have scooted out the mirrors. On this one, I don't think I'm going to be doing that. Jumping up here, we've got this wonderful Oculus, a little dirty because all my bikes are dirty. I always ride them, so. But check this out. Analog speed on the outside. So you got that analog part. That's something an old guy like me likes. Then in here, you've got your lights down here, oil light and a battery light, by the way, fuel light too. And then up here in the center, you've got this like 1.5 inch across LED. It's got the odometer. And then using this button over here, you can go to trip A, trip B, and then back to odometer. It's got an always visible gear indicator, so you always know what gear you're in. It's also got an always visible clock, so you always know that. And then up here in the top, it's got this LED fuel gauge, and I actually really like that. That works very well. Jumping over here is a nav system. I have used it. It works very well, but it drained my phone pretty darn quick. And by the way, look at this Showa. See that right up there? Another thing I want to show you all while we're here is just how wide the bars are. And I think that's kind of a throwback thing again with the cruiser-esque kind of bike. And then it's a little retro-y because, you know, older bikes always had wider bars. But while I'm bragging on that, check out this little detail here, this Royal Enfield wing. Just beautiful, beautiful. Very well done. Very well done indeed. Okay, let's talk about the extras that I've got on this bike. I don't have a lot yet, but we'll talk more about that later. I put the windshield on myself. It is a Royal Enfield windshield. It works superbly. It's made for this bike. It just does great things. Jumping down here, Baxter Cycle put these wide foot pegs on for me. I really appreciated that. On the long ride I took, those foot pegs were lifesavers. I was able to hang my feet out like this. I was able to do this. I was able to do this. You know, it's just amazing. And then the luggage. GB luggage. And I have never had luggage so good or bags so good on a bike in my life. They just work superbly. They're easy to get in and out of. The big thing is they're detachable. So when I pack for my trip, I took these off. You just stick a key in here. There's 4 keys that come with it, and they're all keyed the same. These just literally pop right off. Took them in the house, packed them, came back out. You just set them in these 2 clips, push it in, and they're attached. And I did the same thing when I got to the hotel. You know, just easy peasy, as my grandson would say. Easy peasy, you know. And I think they work very well. They look good, in my opinion. The more I use them, the better they look. You know, they've got this silver detail, the little line around it. You know, kind of matches the bike. I love this sticker. Isn't that cool? Baxter Cycle. Baxter Cycle. Go to baxtercycle.com if you need a new or used Royal Enfield Triumph, classic British bike of any type. Wahoo! Anyway, what a machine. What a machine. Okay, I'm going to hop on that hot rod, and we are going to catch up with each other at the next stop. Hey, Fuzzy Biker here. We have made it to Murray Hill. Check it out. That goes on and on and on up that way. About 8 miles of trail. That is the Missouri River Valley. Way on the other side, you probably can't make them out. The Missouri River's over yonder. But there's another set of hills, and those are in Nebraska. Anyway, back to this bike. It's kind of spitting rain. Check out the windshield. Been driving through that for the last 30 miles. I put about 90 miles on it. Oh, look at that. Just got her filthy, don't I? Holy moly. Well, I'm okay. I'm okay. I mean, I've got great gear on. My pants are wet. My shoes are a little wet. But, you know, I'm okay. This Cardinal Law jacket is just, it's waterproof. It's been awesome. And these gloves are waterproof too. Tourmaster. Got all this stuff from Baxter Cycle. BaxterCycle.com. What a ride. What a ride. So what about the bike? What do I want to say now? I want to talk about why I bought this bike. I bought this bike because I plan on doing a whole mess of bike riding next year. Probably 30, 40, 50,000, actually 40 or 50,000. This year I did about 30. So I want to do a significant amount more than I did this year. And I want to go coast to coast. I want to go from Pacific to Atlantic, all the way down to the tip of Florida, the top of Maine, over to what's the northwest corner. I have not been to the 4 northwest corner states or to North Dakota or Alaska. But I want to, you know, focus on, anyway, up there and then down to the bottom end of California. And I'm going to do it on this bike, and I think it'll do it just fine. I took this on a 700-mile ride just recently. 2 days, 700 miles. It was a test ride. Test the luggage, the comfort, all that stuff. The bike passed with flying colors. One of the things that I learned on that trip is that the bike is comfortable and it's got plenty of power. And I think this is a good touring bike for that kind of a venue. Why don't I get a bigger bike for that? Well, one is I like Royal Enfields, and 2 is a bigger bike is more expensive. It's more expensive to operate. It's more expensive to own. It's heavier. You know, it's all kinds of things. I'm also a guy that's kind of hooked on cruisers, and those of us in the bike world, we know that cruisers make good touring bikes. You put a good windshield on them, bags and things like that, and they actually do pretty good usually. And this bike fits that role. It'll get decent gas mileage. It'll go into the spots where a lot of bigger bikes won't go, and it'll just do what we need done. I'd like to throw this in really quick. I've had probably 60 or more, well, more than 60 bikes for sure in my lifetime, and there's just a couple that have stuck with me over the years. I had a KE100 when I was a youngin' that I just love that bike. Miles and miles and miles on it. Yamaha Vision, I think I put 40,000 miles on that before I blew it up. My Honda Shadow. My favorite of all time so far has been my Royal Enfield Himalayan. And why am I mentioning that? Well, I'm mentioning that because I think with 2,400 miles on this bike, I think this is going to be one of those bikes. And I think that because we're going to do a lot with it next year. I think it's comfortable. I think it handled well. I think it has all of the characteristics of one of those great bikes, and that's why I'm going to use this as that bike. So stay tuned, and next year we'll see what kind of things we can do with this hot rod, huh? Something else I want to mention. There are 3 things, which are actually 4, that you need to know about any Royal Enfield. One is cheap cost of entry. You know, they've got this bike out the door in stock form was $7,500, $7,000 for the bike, $500 for setup fee and shipping. That's without the accessories. So cheap to get in with a 3-year, the second thing, 3-year unlimited mile warranty. And that's another reason I chose this bike for that ride. 3 years, unlimited miles. Well, I'm going to put a bunch of miles on this bike next year. So we're going to test that. Next thing would be the maintenance. Easy to maintain, cheap to maintain. I did a valve job and oil change on this the other day. It took me a couple hours, the first time I ever did it. You know, I think when Royal Enfield builds bikes, they build them with that kind of thing in mind. I think over in India, they expect the owners to do their own maintenance. And so that means if you do it yourself, it's easy. If you hire it out, it should be cheaper than a regular motorcycle. And the last thing I'd like to talk about is accessories and customization. Royal Enfield made almost 1 million motorcycles last year, and there are companies that have come into existence simply to provide parts and custom products for Royal Enfield motorcycles. So there are going to be an endless supply of all kinds of add-ons that we're going to be able to use for this thing, and that's another big bonus of doing this. And I think they have that in mind when they build these bikes. For instance, on this bike, I've already added the windshield, foot pegs, the bags. I'm thinking about, I haven't decided yet, about adding running lights. They have GV makes a set of nice running lights. Baxtercycle.com has those on their website. I know I would like to put a sissy bar on here. I'd like to get the touring seat with the sissy bar. Other things I'd like to add, well, I don't know what else. I don't want to add pipes because I want the bike to stay quiet, although I love the sound. I love the sound of aftermarket pipes on a good bike, you know. Anyway, so cheap to get in, unlimited mile warranty, easy to do maintenance, and of course the accessory aftermarket products. But hey, life is good. Life is good. If you're interested in a bike like this, a newer used Royal Enfield Triumph classic British bike of any type, need accessories, gear like this great stuff I got on, t-shirts, backpacks, things like that, get yourself over to Baxter Cycle, Marnie, Iowa, or go to baxtercycle.com. Tell them Fuzzy Biker sent you. Now, it's a beautiful day here. Check out the rain. I've been driving in rain for quite a while. There's more of it coming. Thank goodness we're going that way. I'm going to go with some miles on that bike. Life is good. Wahoo!